All right, hello everyone and welcome to this year's membership meeting. My name is Lauren Belsky. I'm the program coordinator of the Jersey Waterworks Collaborative. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to organize this year's membership meeting, and it, as always, is truly such a team effort. So I have to give big shout outs to the Jersey Waterworks backbone staff who you'll see here today and in our breakout groups, and have just done so much behind the scenes. So Andrew Tabus, Kim Irby, Jyoti Venkataraman, Gary Brune, and of course, Jersey Waterworks Program Manager, Paula Figueroa Vega. And I also have to give a shout out to Trisha, Loanna, Missy, Michelle, and Chris. And of course, our incredible speakers who we'll hear from in a little bit. So it's always just so amazing to see how Jersey Waterworks members, all of you, come together to drive change as we collectively work towards transforming New Jersey's water infrastructure. We all know the importance of having clean, safe drinking water and upgraded water infrastructure, as well as protected natural resources. And really none of this would happen without the essential workers and all of you in your roles, all of you here today that make it possible. So today we are using Zoom, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with at this point, but your microphones will be off until we get to the breakout rooms, which will be after the panel. But we really encourage you to turn your cameras on so we can see you and you can see other people in attendance today. So on your screen now, you'll see some different features that we'll use during the event. We'll use some polls. So when a poll is initiated, it will pop up on your screen and you'll have a few seconds to answer. And then we'll share those results live. And then we'll also use the chat box. So I see some of you are using that now. That is excellent. Let's test out the chat. I invite all of you to write your name and your organization in the chat box. And then also add one word to describe how you're feeling today about water. Okay. So go ahead and put some items in the chat and say hello. Hi, Randy, Amy, Kareem, Megan, David, Andy, JL. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Keep it coming. So on social media, as you can see on the bottom of all of the slides, we have the hashtag. So if you're on social media, please use the hashtag and check out our social media pages and tag us using the account handles that you'll see in the chat in a little bit. All right, thank you and enjoy everyone. And I'll turn it over to the New Jersey Waterworks co-chairs, Andy Cricken and Nicole Miller. Andy?
Thanks a lot, Lauren. It's a great pleasure to see everyone. And many thanks to all of you for all that you've done to advance safe drinking water and clean waterways, affordability, and equity for all. Thank you for volunteering your time and expertise to this cause. We've accomplished so much and the best is yet to come. And many thanks to the Dodge Foundation for funding this initiative, and of course, the New Jersey Future for creating the initiative and being the creative and implementing force behind the initiative. It's been really an amazing 6-year run, and Nicole and I are excited to work with all of you moving forward. Nicole?
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. We're so excited to be here. My name is Nicole Miller. I am co-chair along with Andy. We are excited to be your new co-chairs for Jersey Waterworks. And we're excited about the great group that we have. We have nearly 120 people in the room today. This is, just imagine if we were down at NJPAC or down at our other center, and just imagine the folks that we'd have in the room. Similar networking opportunities abound. So we want to know who's in this space. We want to know who we have with us today. We're going to have some polls that are going to pop up. Oh, look at that. Which group best represents your sector? I love on the back end, you can see the poll working. It's fun. It looks like nonprofit water-related organization is at 34%. Then we have state wastewater and wastewater utility at 20%, state government at 16%, and then a private water-related organization at 13%. We also have community groups, academic institutions, and then unaffiliated individuals who are with us as well. So a great mix of folks in the room. It's very exciting. So we want to see how long you've been engaged with the collaborative. We have another poll question. Are you a member of Jersey Waterworks? Have you been here since the beginning, just a few years, just recently joined, or a potential new Jersey Waterworks member? Okay. Nice. That's a good retention rate. Nearly 30% have been here since the beginning. It's excellent. We have another 23% that's in that 3 to 5 year range. 13% has been here for 1 to 2 years. 9% just joined in the past year. We have some new members who have attended past events but have not joined, who have not officially joined. And then we have folks who are new to us. This is their first event. Welcome. We're happy to have you joining us for the first time. It's exciting. So, all right, so whether it's your first meeting or you've been with us for a while, there's a lot that can be learned. I'm just gonna close my results here. They're just in my face. It's hard for me to see. So we're going to go over the agenda right now. I'm sorry, I have 2 screens, so that's why I keep looking sideways. But first, we're going to have some opening remarks. Then we're going to hear from Jane and Mark, as well as our governors, our honorary co-chairs. They have a video. And we'll be discussing water risk and equity mapping projects. And we'll have some remarks from Senator Cory Booker, as well as a panel discussion, which I really hope that you stay with us for, and some breakout sessions. And all of these are geared towards discussing the moment. Andy, my co-chair, loves to sort of call it the moment. It's really a once in a generational opportunity. And those are words I'm stealing from Andy. A once in a generational opportunity to affect water infrastructure because of funding opportunities that we have. And the folks that we have in the room, the different groups that you saw listed in those poll results, I feel that Jersey Waterworks is a great opportunity to bring disparate voices together, have different perspectives, to come together to really effect the best change for New Jersey with the potential funding that we have coming in. And so we're so excited to have you with us here. And I'm going to let Andy discuss the next section.
Thanks, Nicole. Well, I'm so happy and honored to be teamed with my friend and colleague, Nicole Miller, to lead the Jersey Waterworks Initiative, and I'm very honored to follow in the footsteps of Jane Kenny and Mark Moriello, who led the initiative from its inception back in 2015. We've been so glad and grateful to have their leadership, and Nicole and I are really honored to follow in their footsteps, and you'll be hearing from them, as Nicole said, in a short while. So this slide describes basically how Jersey Waterworks works. I mean, it's very much a large tent for all water stakeholders to work together, doing more together than we can separately on various issues. So regulators, environmentalists, community leaders, utilities, all working together to try to deal with the biggest challenges and opportunities for water. As the slide shows, we've basically identified 4 main goals: effective and financially sustainable systems, empowered stakeholders, successful and beneficial green infrastructure, and smart CSO control plans that get triple bottom line benefits for their communities at optimal and cost-effective costs. We have the steering committee. New Jersey Future serves as the backbone organization. And then there are 4 main committees: the Asset Management and Finance Committee, the Education and Outreach Committee, the Green Infrastructure Committee, the CSO Committee, and also 2 task forces, one on lead in drinking water, and also the data committee that works and is leading the Jersey Water Check initiative. And of course, we have to thank the Dodge Foundation once again for funding all of this. Without Dodge's funding and support, there would be no program. Without New Jersey Future's efforts, there would also be no program. And most of all, success is driven by members. Boy, great timing on that. Thanks, Lauren. Success driven by members, because without the volunteers giving their time and expertise to actually move the work forward, we could not succeed. So we hope that that all of you who are already members, we thank you for your efforts and initiatives. And for those who haven't joined yet but are on, and Paula has put a note in the chat, we would really ask you to do this. This, as Nicole said, the moment really is now. There really is an opportunity right now more than ever to achieve water equity in our state and really in our nation, and to push forward the notion that everyone, no matter where they live or what they look like, is entitled to safe drinking water and clean waterways. So we hope that you will, if you haven't already, will join forces with us to try to bring that about. And much has already happened since that very first meeting back in 2015. There's been advances in lead and drinking water. The governor just passed, signed legislation passed by the Assembly and Senate on, removing all lead service lines in the next 10 years. The combined sewage flooding plans have all been submitted to try to alleviate combined sewage impacts in CSO communities. Green infrastructure has been, proliferated across the state. Water infrastructure funding has been, issued by our friends at New Jersey iBank and New Jersey DEP, and billions of dollars and more to come, hopefully, if federal funding is approved, hopefully soon. And then we've also worked on affordability issues. The low income water assistance program is also moving forward, and also we've worked on water workforce. So a tremendous amount of work already undertaken since that first meeting in 2015. Having been at that meeting, if you could have told me then that so much would have been accomplished, I would be really happy, but there's still much more to go. We need to make sure that every child is safe from having lead in their drinking water. We need to make sure that people don't have to worry about sewage in their basements or kids walking through puddles of sewage to get to their bus stops. There's more to do. Next, I want to introduce Governor Florio and Governor Whitman. We are so lucky that also from the onset of the initiative, we've had our governors of New Jersey, former governors of New Jersey, who have been behind the program. They addressed our initial meeting. They've been involved throughout the past 6 years at every level, and have been, lodestars and guideposts for us to continue the work. Both of them, Governor Florio with the work that he did when he was governor, and then also in the Congress with regard to brownfields and protecting the environment, especially for underserved communities. Governor Whitman, with her leadership in New Jersey and the head of the EPA, we've been so lucky to have these two governors be part of and support our work. It has been lent credibility and status to what we've been trying to do, and also, we've been guided and inspired by the work they've done. So at this time, I believe we're going to go to the video for Governor Whitman and Governor Florio. And also, I will be introducing Jane and Mark later, and asking them to say a few words about their leadership. But first, Governor Florio and Governor Whitman.
Good evening. I'm very pleased to be part of the program here tonight, to commend everyone who's responsible for the success of the collaborative and Jersey Works. And that particularly is Mark and Jane. The leadership they've demonstrated has been extremely important for the success of the organization. I've always believed that public policy should be made for the public interest. And to do that, we have to have people, real people, engaged and informed, engaged to know what the problems are and informed so they can have good solutions. You can't solve a problem if you don't understand the problem. So that I'm looking forward to continued success and growth. And I know under the leadership of Andy and Nicole, this is going to continue. So I look forward to being supportive, being helpful, and commend you for what you've done and what you've yet to do. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Christy Whitman, former governor of New Jersey, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate New Jersey Water Works for the job they've been doing over the years to help educate New Jersey citizens on the issue about which they care the most, as we have seen from recent surveys: access to clean and safe drinking water. One of the things that New Jersey Water Works has done in such an outstanding way is to build collaboratives. Collaboration across the state boundaries, across municipal boundaries and county boundaries, and helping to educate the public on things like water infrastructure and watersheds, what it's going to take to ensure that we have that safe drinking water. And a lot of this has been done and directed by the co-chairs, the first co-chairs, Jane Kenny and Mark Moriello. And I want to congratulate them as they move off onto the honorary titles. But I know this isn't going to stop the work they've been doing for New Jersey Water Works, because it is so essential to all of us that we increase the education amongst the general public as to how to conserve water, what we need to spend on infrastructure, at the same time as continuing to build the collaboratives that will make us a stronger state in the long run. So thank you all at New Jersey Water Works. We appreciate all that you have done.
Thank you very much, Governor Florio and Governor Whitman, for your remarks. And I want to echo their words and thank heartfelt thanks to Jane Kenny and Mark Moriello. If they were here, there'd be a standing ovation for them for all that they've done for the collaborative from the beginning, and want to invite them to make the remarks. But thanks for all that you've done and blazing the trail for all of us. Jane?
Thanks, Andy. Hi, everyone. That was great. It was great to see Governor Florio again and Governor Whitman, hear from both of them and know that they still give us our support. And we've just had this vision from the beginning to make sure that everyone has access to clean and safe and affordable water. And we also decided from the very beginning to do this work as a collaborative. As one of its founding members, it was just so great to experience the progress that we made towards our mission over these past 6 years. And as we've talked about, this work is a participatory process. People come from all over, from different perspectives, all people standing at different parts of the elephant, and they see their own work, but they also see this common goal, this common challenge. And so, yes, we did have a challenging process because we took in many viewpoints with every step we took. But I believe that the outcomes have been more meaningful and more inclusive. So there's an exciting future ahead, and we're so delighted that Andy and Nicole have agreed to guide the next steps. And I just want to say that it's just been such a pleasure to work and serve with my fellow co-chair, Mark Moriello, and also all the steering committee members who always had so much to offer. And of course, the most hard-working backbone staff you could wish for. And I just want to thank all of you for all your work and just making our job so much easier. Collaboration can be an extra effort, but it's so worth it. So thank you, and have a great conference.
Thank you very much, Jane. Mark?
Thanks. Yeah, I'd like to also acknowledge Governor Whitman and Governor Florio for being part of this collaborative from the start. It really sent a signal, I think, to the world that this is a serious effort. And I think the progress we've made over the past 6 years really is a testament to that. I'd like to thank the members for the contributions over this period. The members of the steering committee for their commitment to do a little extra work in leading the collaborative. And you'll hear a lot about the collaborative today. And I think what we've shown is that working together as a collaborative really is the most effective way to make progress in achieving goals. And I encourage you all to maintain your energy and commitment and continue progress as a collaborative. Quick thanks to the New Jersey Future staff, Chris, Paula, Lauren, and Ed DeFiglia and Jane Rosenblatt before them. We are successful because of the support that these people provide to us, and we're thankful for that. And lastly, again, what an honor to serve with my friend Jane Kenny, who I've known literally my entire life, and to be part of such a dedicated group of professionals. I know you're in very good hands with Nicole and Andy, and I wish you continued success in the future. Thank you.
Great. So now we have Amy and Kate and Lindsay. We're going to launch.
Are you ready? We have everybody? That's great. So I'm Amy Goldsmith. I'm with Clean Water Action, and one of the, I guess, was here in the very beginning. We're really excited to show you the New Jersey water risk equity map that includes FEMA flood zones, extreme weather, and routine flooding models. The water risk layers also include impervious cover and impaired streams. And the demographic layers include the DEP's list of overburdened communities and the CDC's social vulnerability index, as well as redlining. And we'd like your input on how to use the map, and we want to discuss it at the breakout rooms. So we hope you'll join us for our session. Now I'd like to hand it over to Kate Lawrence and Lindsay Sigmund from Jersey City to talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm Kate Lawrence. I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Jersey City. And we're really excited about the tool as well, and to see how we can use it to look at mapping areas and flooding issues within Jersey City. So we're going to look at a particular area in Jersey City that has been problematic for flooding, and ask how this area has been affected by Hurricane Sandy, and what else can we learn about the area using the map and the tools to look at the demographics. So the area that we're going to be looking at specifically is Mill Creek. Just wait to get to the next map. Okay, great. So this map shows in blue the areas within Jersey City and the region that were flooded during Hurricane Sandy. So as you can see, the entire eastern coast of Jersey City, as well as the western side along the Hackensack. I'm going to turn it over now to Lindsay Sigmund, and she'll be talking about the Mill Creek area.
Thanks, Kate. So I'm Lindsay Sigmund from Jersey City's Division of City Planning. So taking a closer look at Mill Creek, the area surrounding Mill Creek in Jersey City, also known as the Grand Jersey Redevelopment Area, is a major breach point for flooding for the city. Since the 1960s, Jersey City has planned to redevelop the area to address flooding, clean up brownfield sites, since the entire site is considered a brownfield site, and to reduce combined sewer overflows. The combined sewer outfall on this site is the largest in the city and is actually the third largest in the state of New Jersey. So the map on this slide shows the area surrounding Mill Creek, and the areas shaded dark blue were flooded during Hurricane Sandy, just further demonstrating the vulnerability of this area in terms of flooding. Now I'll hand it off to Pablo.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Lindsay. Now what we see in this slide is that another 2 layers have been added to the map, which are CSO outfalls and identified contaminated site locations. And what we can see with just these couple clicks is that most of the contaminated sites and CSO outfalls in this area overlap with the flooded area of Hurricane Sandy. And if we go to the next slide, we added the layer that shows overburdened communities on top of the previous layers. For those who are not familiar with it, overburdened communities are defined by the environmental justice law, which defines overburdened communities based on income, minority, and language. And here we see 2 geometries or 2 polygons. One is yellow and one is blue. And what it is telling us is that in this area of Mill Creek, there is a part of the area that is identified as an overburdened community due to the presence of minority populations at a high percentage. And on the left, to the northwest, there is a part of the area affected by Superstorm Sandy that is also an overburdened community due to low income besides minority. So we hope that this kind of tool and map could help other towns across New Jersey work around their water-related risks and environmental justice issues. And we really look forward to having you in our breakout session to talk more about how we can be helpful through this tool. Now back to Nicole.
Thank you very much, Pablo. So you've seen we have the water risk equity map. Please join one of our great panels, breakout sessions after the panel to discuss this. But now we're going to hear from U.S. Senator Cory Booker. We're so grateful to have Senator Booker, along with his commitment to water and water-related issues. And it's important that Jersey Waterworks stay engaged with our legislators so that they can understand the importance of directing funding to the infrastructure concerns that we have. For example, Senator Booker is presenting the Environmental Justice Legacy Pollution Cleanup Act of 2021. And so those kinds of infrastructure bills can help direct money. And we want to make sure that we are keeping an eye on what our legislators are doing and that they know the work that needs to be done in New Jersey. So let's hear from Senator Booker.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the incredible partners at Jersey Waterworks. And thanks for all of your collaborative efforts to improve New Jersey communities. You all know that investing in New Jersey's infrastructure is not just a compelling environmental issue, it is a public health issue. It's an economic issue. It's about our quality of life. From removing the risks associated with our nation's aging lead and copper pipes carrying drinking water to fixing our inundated stormwater infrastructure, this nation must take big, bold action in the form of resources necessary to address this critical issue. And there's no better place to demonstrate that need than in our great state of New Jersey. Estimates show that in the next 20 years to come, New Jersey will need over $8 billion to be dedicated to its drinking water infrastructure to protect our families from harm. We have dozens of municipalities that are overburdened with aging stormwater systems that combine treated water with untreated water after a major storm, sending the outflow into our precious bodies of water. That's why I've introduced and worked with many people to fight to include $25 billion for the EPA to address the combined sewer overflows, particularly in economically distressed communities. The bill I've pushed also includes $45 billion to replace every lead drinking water service line in the country. And I've talked directly to the Biden administration many times and know that they are going to prioritize this as well. New Jersey has done an incredible job with the tools at its disposal, like utilizing the infrastructure bank to leverage EPA's clean water and drinking water state revolving funds. But we know that the need for these resources really outweighs the money we currently have at hand. And so I'm going to continue to fight in the Senate as your voice and representative, fighting for as much of this critical funding as possible. Our communities deserve it. Our families deserve it. We deserve a 21st century water infrastructure in the United States of America, the richest nation on the planet Earth. I stand ready to continue to work as your partner in these efforts. Thank you so much.
Lester, you're muted.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lester Taylor. I've had the pleasure of getting involved with Jersey Waterworks several years ago through my service as mayor of the city of East Orange. And I love the mission and vision and action of the organization so much that I stayed involved and engaged. I'm presently a partner at the law firm of Florio Perucci, Steinhardt, Capelli, Tipton, and Taylor. I'm very honored and proud to see our namesake, Governor Jim Florio, in attendance with us this afternoon as we address and tackle some of these very serious issues. Presently, I serve as a steering committee member of Jersey Waterworks, as well as a member of the Education and Outreach Committee as co-chair of those respective committees. It's important to note at the outset of our panel discussion today that at Jersey Waterworks, we are a collaborative. We will not take positions to oppose or support local, state, or federal legislation or formal executive actions, such as proposals to adopt or regulate and or other executive orders. However, we are aware of these actions, and we think that they should be made aware of and shared with the community. As Governor Florio said, public policy should be made with and in the public's interest, and that's what Jersey Waterworks does. The slide that you see in front of you, significant water legislation, I'm not going to comment on them individually. You've heard Nicole and Andrew touch upon some of these various pending legislation, and we have a number of distinguished panelists that I'll introduce in a few that I'm sure will touch upon and expound upon what's in the pipeline from a new legislative standpoint, but also with existing laws and regulations. One of the things that we have to acknowledge at this day in time is that we are in a significant moment for water infrastructure. Leave it to me to incorporate the notorious BIG into a water panel, but I believe you said, if you don't know, now you know. And the reality is, I see Mr. Adeem nodding his head as well. So the reality is that our water infrastructure actions have generational impacts on our communities across our state and across our nation, and they have long-term health and well-being impacts for our communities. Now, an overarching theme today is what? COVID. COVID has raised the significance of health and the importance of water, whether it be to wash our hands, to stay healthy, but also to avoid water shutoffs for those who are most vulnerable in our various communities. COVID has reminded us of the essential nature of our water utility staff, who have worked tirelessly over the past year during this pandemic to deliver safe and quality drinking water, as well as to treat wastewater throughout our respective communities. Over the last several weeks, we've had a number of severe weather events right here in New Jersey, with torrential rains, flooding, beach closures. These all highlight the importance of improving our water systems, both from a drinking, but also treatment standpoint for wastewater. Lastly, our government leaders, one of whom is on our panel today, they are acting. They're leading and they are acting. We have a number of state and federal laws that are being addressed or enacted rather, to address the challenges, often in direct response to issues raised by yours truly, Jersey Waterworks, and our collaborative. So again, we'll hear more shortly from our panelists about some of these new laws to replace every lead service line throughout communities in our state, to ensure proactive asset management and planning, to also propose initiatives for affordability of water in our communities. At the same time, there are federal and state funds that are being provided to create a generational opportunity to make capital investments and turn the corner on our water challenges in our state, as well as with respect to our combined sewer overflows. So with that, again, I'm very proud to be part of the Jersey Waterworks Collaborative. Our various committees, education and outreach just being two. We would encourage all of you to consider joining and being active and engaged with the various committees, so that we can increase the knowledge and the awareness of our stakeholders, as well as the various communities that we are in. Now let me turn to an introduction of our speakers who will address these and many more of the initiatives that we spoke about. First, we're going to have Ed Potosnak. Ed's the executive director of the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. He's also a Jersey Waterworks Steering Committee member. We have Christine Ballard. Christine's a principal engineer, client service leader at CDM Smith. She's also New Jersey director and in the Water Committee. She's also on the Jersey Waterworks Education and Outreach Committee, and she's a co-chair with me. I'm very proud and happy to have Christine here with us today. Representing the community's interest, we have Jose Amarante. Jose is a resident and community activist. He's part of the Sewage-Free Streets and Rivers Advisory Board, the Perth Amboy Stormwater Infrastructure Management Team, and he has some very enlightening comments and ideas that he's going to share with us this afternoon. And last but not least, we referenced our elected and government officials leading and acting. We have New Jersey's own Senator Linda Greenstein. She is from New Jersey's 14th Legislative District. She reminded me that while she's not related to Albert Einstein, her name is pronounced similar, so she's in good company with Albert Einstein. But she is a leading legislator on clean water issues, and she co-chaired the Joint Legislative Task Force on Drinking Water Infrastructure. So please join me in welcoming this very distinguished panel of guests. By way of housekeeping, each speaker is going to give a brief overview through their opening comments, and then we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion with some questions from me as moderator, but also we're going to attempt to incorporate some questions or ideas from those of you who have taken the time to join us by Zoom. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ed for his comments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lester, everyone, for being here today, for having me. My name is Ed Potasnik. I'm Executive Director with the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters and the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. We can go to the next slide. So a little bit about who we are. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit. We have a 501c3 tax deductible entity that gets involved in lots of things nonprofits do, and also a 501c4, which has unlimited lobbying capability. And we work to pass laws that help protect the people of the state of New Jersey and its precious natural resources. We founded something called the Flood Defense Coalition, we work with New Jersey Future, the Highlands Coalition, the Pinelands Preservation Alliance, ANJAC, the Watershed Institute, as well as Raritan Headwaters and other nonprofits throughout the state to move the stormwater utility initiative at the local level. And prior to that, I mentioned we passed laws at the state level. We helped to lead the effort on the Stormwater Utility Bill as we know it, but it's officially called the Clean Stormwater and Flood Reduction Act. And so I've been asked to talk a little bit about things that are moving to help with funding at the local level. We know the American Rescue Plan is a big one. A lot of municipalities are sitting on funding, but others are going to address some of those funds that are available. So what I'm going to talk about today, if you go to the next slide, is the American Rescue Plan. So right now, the Senate of the United States of America is taking up the bipartisan infrastructure package. It goes by the American Jobs Plan, Build Back Better, bipartisan framework. There's all these kinds of things that are out there. But what is it? It started with a proposal by President Biden to create millions of good local union jobs and rebuild our nation's infrastructure. And the proposal included $1.7 trillion of new infrastructure spending over 10 years, and included spending on things like transportation, utilities, our schools and hospitals, research and development, manufacturing, and doing that over that 10-year budget window. After President Biden proposed the initiative, the overall funding has now grown to something, you'll hear a lot of numbers tossed around, but we're up to about $4.1 trillion on the table as we speak today. With the bipartisan package at $600 billion, again, right now it's being considered on the Senate floor. There's about $3.5 trillion left for the Democrats' reconciliation, which only needs a majority to pass both chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate, to land on the president's desk. And as all of you know, it's like preaching to the choir here, but the initiative is needed. The United States ranks 13th when it comes to overall water quality of our infrastructure. After decades of disinvestment, our roads, our bridges, our water systems, they're all crumbling, and too many New Jerseyans lack access to affordable high-speed internet and also to high-quality housing. And the American Jobs Plan aims to fix all of this. President is calling on Congress to invest additional $17 billion in inland waterways, our coastal ports, our land ports of entry, our ferries that are essential to our freight. That includes the Healthy Ports Program to mitigate the cumulative impacts of air pollution on neighborhoods near the ports that are often communities of color. The plan also is targeting 40% of the benefits of the climate and clean infrastructure to disadvantaged communities. And the plan is also investing in rural communities and communities impacted by the market-based transition to clean energy. So folks that are working in the coal industry can be transitioned through a just transition into the clean, green energy economy. If you go to the next slide, we can look at what we're looking at as far as water. Across the country, pipes and treatment plants are aging, and polluted drinking water is endangering public health. There's an estimated 6 to 10 million homes still receiving drinking water through lead pipes and service lines, including right here in New Jersey. And the president's investments in improving water infrastructure and replacing these lead service lines are going to create the good union jobs, and they're paid at prevailing wages right here in our home state. If we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the $111 billion that the president's planning to invest to eliminate all the lead pipes, which we heard Senator Booker talk about, by investing $45 billion in the Environmental Protection Agency's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund and the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act, which is called WIN grants. This will help to address our aging water systems that are threatening public health of thousands of communities nationwide and modernizing the systems by scaling up existing successful programs. And there's also $56 billion in grants and low-cost flexible loans to states, tribes, territories, and disadvantaged communities across the country. And what does this mean for New Jersey? If we go to the next slide, I think we got it. Yeah. Over the next 20 years, New Jersey's drinking water infrastructure will require roughly $8.6 billion in additional funding. For decades, infrastructure in New Jersey suffered from systematic lack of investment, yielding our infrastructure a grade of a D+ on the infrastructure report card. And the need for the American Jobs Plan here in our state, so we're all here together, is very clear. So if you go to I think it might be the same slide, but what are we doing about it here at New Jersey LCV and working with our partners? So we've partnered with our national branch to push the Build Back Better plan here in New Jersey, because we need our delegation to be strong. So we have a list of legislative targets. If you go back to the other slide, there you can see who they are. They're not, sort of top secret. That are the most critical to passing the American Jobs Plan. And our staff and members have already taken actions to support the plan, leveraging our relationships with legislators and their staffs, and building power with allied organizations across, the state, with digital organizing, on the ground organizing, and we have specific, plans to continue to move this. All in told, together with our national partner, we've spent about $3.5 million advancing the American Jobs Plan here in New Jersey alone. And we have plans to do more. And that includes television ads, canvassing, and education and outreach in those key target districts. Our goal is to ensure that every single member of Congress is taking all the appropriate action to take bold steps to address our aging infrastructure and pass the American Jobs Plan, the comprehensive package, which includes the bipartisan framework and reconciliation. So we can, tackle climate change, tackle the infrastructure upgrades that we need, and improvements and that aren't even, in place now that we all need are, necessary. And our goal is to do that by September. So got like 4.5 weeks. And we're not supporting anything being broken up into lots of smaller bills. It's really these two bills moving at once is the package that we're pushing. And I think it's going to be a home run for us here in New Jersey to, as we like to say, bring home the bacon as a donor state for taxes to invest in our communities. That's kind of what I want to talk about for now. Thanks, Lester. Pass it back to you.
Thank you, Ed. That was a very informative presentation. Next, we have Christine Ballard. Christine.
Thank you, Lester. I'm honored to be on a panel with these amazing people. I'm also thrilled to be able to have an open discussion with so many Jersey Waterworks members. It is this group who can collectively make a difference and help bring the importance of clean water to the forefront of everyone's mind. Too often, people take for granted the amount of work that goes into providing safe drinking water and clean waterways. Throughout COVID, people forgot about the utility workers who continued to show up for work, some of them operating in lockdown conditions. They asked them to forego shutoffs, but continue to provide service. So before I get started, I would like to send a big thank you to all of the water utility workers for their service. As a group, the Jersey Waterworks membership owes it to ourselves to do a little bit of self-promotion and get the word out on the value of water. But let's be clear, access to clean waterways and safe drinking water should not be a privilege. It should be a universal truth. But unfortunately, we have learned that this is not always the case and has resulted in a mistrust and broken relationship between the customer and the utility. In my role as co-chair of the Education and Outreach Committee, we aim to make information accessible to all people and to educate those responsible for decisions concerning utilities. In fact, recently, we sent a direct letter to New Jersey mayors asking them to allocate some portion of their American Rescue Plan funds toward upgrading drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater infrastructure. Water should not be an afterthought. It should be a primary thought, since we quite literally cannot live without it. The water industry leaders and frontline workers work tirelessly to keep our waterways clean, but they need funding and support from people like you to manage the ongoing challenges related to removal of lead service lines, treatment of forever chemicals like PFAS, and building sustainable communities designed to weather the next storm. If we do not work together to communicate the value of water and to educate our neighbors, there will not be enough funding to overcome these challenges. Despite the hard road ahead, I am quite optimistic. It is the ever-growing number of members within the Jersey Waterworks community that gives me the most hope. I was part of one of the very first Jersey Waterworks membership meetings in 2016, when we could all fit in a medium-sized auditorium. And each year since then, we continue to outgrow our space. Together, we collaborate and challenge the status quo. This year, there is significant water legislation that will further move the needle toward more equitable communities and safer water systems. But our job is not done. In my role as an engineering consultant and board member for the Association of Environmental Authorities, we see the daily struggles of utilities managing thin budgets while also implementing infrastructure improvements to comply with each new regulatory change. This is a delicate balance. On one side, environmentalists criticize them for not doing enough, while ratepayers complain and affordability suffers. As a group at Jersey Waterworks, we need to come together to overcome these challenges, but not by criticizing, but by inviting utilities to the table and brainstorming equitable solutions. Unfortunately, I predict we are going to see a reduction in the number of utilities in New Jersey, as these challenges will seem too costly and they will lack the courage to tackle them. But the cost of inactivity is even greater, and it furthers the distrust between the customer and the utility. The only way to truly protect people from lead in drinking water is to physically remove the lead pipes. The Jersey Waterworks membership needs to continue to push for funding of water infrastructure improvements and support our utilities by educating more New Jerseyans on the value of water. I challenge each of you to assist in the cause by helping us educate our legislators and local politicians and giving them the courage they need to fund water infrastructure improvements and make water a priority for the people and the planet. In closing, I would like to remind the Jersey Waterworks community that nearly all of your goals, all of the goals of this membership would not be possible without the support of your local utility. So instead of choosing to battle, choose to collaborate and make an impact together.
Thank you, Christine. Those were great remarks as well. Next up, we have Jose Amarante. Jose?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Jose Amarante. I'm with Stewardship Streets and Rivers Advisory Board. I'm also a CSO task force member of the local Citizens Campaign Civic Trust that operates in my community. So I'll be talking to you about what it is to be participating from an activist standpoint. So just how we have decision makers and organizations that are getting all the funding to make these wonderful projects possible, it is equally as important to have the voice of the community involved so that the decision makers can make the best and most equitable decisions on what it is that we're dealing with in this climate crisis that we're really facing. So I'd just like to give a brief overview of how I became involved. So even though my town and Perth Amboy were a little lucky to have many organizations from Rutgers University involved to the local utility authorities involved, we also have many people who are interested in this issue because we are part of the New York, New Jersey Harbor Estuary. So it is very important to have our input. We're involved in these projects. It is so important to have our discussions and these efforts because without us, we will not be able to move forward the projects that we're looking to get implemented. So we're the ones that are in the ground. We're the ones cleaning up the beaches and the creeks, and we're always looking for people to get involved. So one of the things that we will like being done with this opportunity and the grant money that's coming in is that we would like to have more public participation in these efforts. When you have plans that are being formulated by the engineers, some of us don't have all of the right terminologies that we understand what the engineers and the professionals are understanding. So it's very important to let the community know, especially in urban and challenged communities that don't have the resources and don't have the knowledge to understand what it is that is happening. So when I first started getting involved, I was participating in the cleanups. So from there, me and some other residents branched out and we started getting more involved in meeting the professionals and the staff. So today I'm happy to report that I've become a community leader by attending the meetings and providing my comments on the projects that are being implemented in my town. And I was able to become a leading member of the task force in my town for the CSO problems. And it's also very frightening to receive a letter in the mail saying that there might be contaminants in your drinking water after we've been using it for all these years. And it really caused a storm in all of the communities around the state. So this is why we need people like me that are always keeping a watchful eye over what's happening. And even if we're not invited to participate in these meetings, it is so important to have other members of the community that can go to those meetings when some of us are working or we're taking care of our children, and they will be able to report back to us on what it is that's occurring at these meetings. Because sometimes we get invitations last minute, or we don't really know what's going on, and we have to send one of our own who can and be able to report back to us so that we can remain involved. So yeah, and also one of the things I've been working on as a community leader is a zoning amendment in my town so that we can incentivize the green infrastructure, the PVC pipes that are being installed in some places, and the sewer separations is all very important, because otherwise then the decision makers will just pick their own people to go ahead and execute the bare minimums, if you will. So it's very important to always keep the people involved and make sure that they understand what it is that they're talking about. So I would like to thank everybody here for being a part of this discussion. And ultimately, what I would like to see is to have a discussion among all the organizations from the local level to the state level. And we'll be able to inform more people and bring more awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose, for those dynamic comments. I want to thank Jersey Waterworks for again having you on this panel to represent the community's interests. And I think it bears and is worth repeating Governor Florio's words earlier in today's program, that public policy should be made with and in the public's interests. And your comments and the work you're doing, boots on the ground, I think is a living embodiment of those words from our great Governor Florio. And our next panelist, saving the best for last, is our very own State Senator Linda Greenstein. Senator? You have to unmute yourself, Senator.
Okay. Lester, thank you very much for your kind words, and to the members for having me here today to discuss the critical issue facing our state. Water infrastructure is a topic I care deeply about, and I became most involved with it when I had a role as co-chair on the Joint Legislative Task Force on Drinking Water Infrastructure. I think we've included a link on that so all of you could take a look at that report. The task force took testimony from a wide variety of government agencies, stakeholders, and experts, and members of the public. we concluded that lead service lines, combined sewer overflows, and flooding threaten New Jersey's health, safety, and economic well-being. I introduced and sponsored many pieces of legislation as a result of being involved with the task force. The Water Quality Accountability Act was signed in 2017 and set new operational standards for all water utilities across the state, with the overall goal of improving safety, reliability, and administrative oversight of water infrastructure. I also sponsored S-1073, which was signed into law in 2019, that authorized municipalities, counties, and certain authorities to establish stormwater water utilities. I've continued to introduce bills and advocate for their passage to make New Jersey's water infrastructure more.
So it looks like the senator's screen is frozen.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was just me or not.
It's hard to tell. We'll just give her a minute. I'm sure it'll come back on.
If her connection does not improve in a couple of seconds, we're going to improv. I think we lost the senator. Give her a second.
Let her reload. Yeah.
All right, so while she's reloading, in order to keep things moving, I'm going to start with the Q&A. And if the senator comes back, whoever's speaking, let's just please defer back to Senator Greenstein so she can finish her opening remarks. But I think maybe we can start with Jose, because again, with your fascinating comments, and I'm going to kind of give you two questions in one. As a community leader, what do you think will be a challenge to improve our state's water infrastructure once some of this legislation that you've heard about today passes? And then similarly, why do you think it's important for community members and people like yourself to get involved in water issues in our state?
Okay, so one of the challenges that we may potentially face is that even though we have a set dollar amount to spend on these projects, our decision makers may not have the most up-to-date information that arises from public participation. So even though they have the money and they have certain ideas about what they would like to do, of course, they have their own priorities too, but what would really matter most is for them to be able to use those dollars effectively by talking to people like us. And we know where the areas are that flood the most. We know where the areas are that have the most impact from the climate crisis. So that will be crucial to keep us in the loop when the money comes in and when the opportunities arise. That's when it's mostly important.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for those comments, Jose. Christine, in hearing your remarks, it reminded me in a positive way of my service as mayor of East Orange, and I'm happy to see Allison Rowling, commissioner of the East Orange Water Commission, in attendance today. But as a former mayor of a town with a water utility, I felt those challenges. My community felt those challenges that you described. So I guess what advice would you give to those workers, the elected and or appointed leadership, and or those people who are managing municipal utilities, such as a Newark or a Jersey City or an East Orange, to take advantage of some of these funding sources, but also to maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that we've experienced as a state?
Sure. So I think the first thing to recognize is that even though the challenges may seem insurmountable, they're not going to go away. So you just really need to roll up your sleeves and start dealing with them. And when you start laying out what exactly are your challenges and looking at it as far as a capital plan perspective, you can start to chip away at each challenge one at a time. Very great example, the city of Newark really recognized that they needed to remove the lead service lines. And they not only, they didn't just freeze, they pulled together as a community, expanded out to the County of Essex, the governor's office. Everybody came together and collaborated around the situation, and they've almost succeeded 100%. I think they've had over 20,000 lead service lines replaced, which is the fastest removal program in the United States at this time. So for those people or utilities that are struggling, Just know, first of all, you're not alone. Break it into manageable bite-sized pieces, but then do go back and look at your rates. You probably have to adjust rates to compensate for the whatever spend you're going to need to do. But many utilities, smaller utilities especially, might not have raised rates in 8 or 10 years. And yet since then, the cost for treatment has increased. The cost for compliance has increased. So really just laying out a plan and sticking to your plan is probably the best way to overcome that challenge.
Well, Christine, not to keep you on the spot here, but you referenced raising rates. And I'm reminded of when I was serving as Mayor of East Orange, our water utility raised rates about 75% to account for a needed investment in our plant and infrastructure, as well as compliance with various DEP regulations. But with Jose's comments about public engagement and awareness, how would you suggest elected and/or appointed officials communicate rate raising and the necessity for same to the public?
Well, I think that goes back to my original comments earlier about the importance of educating. What are people getting for the increased rates? What types of connecting to your customers, showing them the value of water, why this is so important, and perhaps the rates were artificially too low before. It's not an easy task. I mean, you know, in your situation, raising rates is never a fun thing to do. But at the end of the day, someone is going to do it. So if you don't raise the rates and you don't make those improvements yourself, it's still going to get done. And ultimately, the customer is going to have to pay for it. So I believe in the public model wholeheartedly. And I just think you lay out your plan, and you don't have to raise the rates all at once. Incrementally over several years works often best. But as a whole, when you have a structured capital improvement plan matched with your small rate increases, you'll eventually get there.
Thank you, Christine. And if history is any tool or teacher, I believe Governor Florio raised rates by a percent or so. And at the time it was criticized, but you know, history has taught us that it was the right thing and the necessary thing to do.
Recording.
I guess we're echoing that. We have about 7 minutes before we get to comments or questions from our audience. Kim Irby will be helping facilitate that part. So if you have any questions, please get them ready. Feel free to drop them in the chat, raise your hand electronically, and we'll be happy to come to you. I see Miss Lindsay Harvey representing Willingboro Township on the line here. She's a common presence at Willingboro Township meetings. Good to see you here this afternoon. And I have a question for Ed. And Ed, I feel like I should have registered for 3 college credits after listening to your presentation. It was so informative this afternoon. But at a recent steering committee meeting of Jersey Waterworks, the topic of increasing local capacity so that low resource communities could gain access to the money, much of which you spoke about in your comments. Can you give us some background information on the challenges that exist in funneling those monies to our communities for the infrastructure, but also potentially funneling those monies to the jobs that you referenced that could be created by the American Jobs Plan?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really important topic. And one of the things with the Flood Defense Coalition, you know, we've been working in target communities to establish stormwater utilities, and it really varies. The capacity of the local departments. Jose, you spoke about that, and you know, doing the asset management, understanding kind of what is the status and where do we need to go. And there are significant, you know, I would say hurdles and variations across the state with, you know, 560 something municipalities. So I think the most important thing to do is to establish relationships and leverage the relationships a lot of the members of Jersey Waterworks have already in communities to really understand is what we would call, in my nonprofit, we call it like the lay of the land. You know, what do things look like on the ground? And rather than coming in as a group and saying, this is what we want you to do, finding out what is it that the community knows is a problem and have already identified solutions, and start with, you know, the local knowledge and input. And that's something that, is a real shift, I think, for a lot of organizations, but it's really critical for success because it's not about what we think is needed. It's about what the people who live in the community know is needed. And Camden is a perfect example. Councilwoman Boucher, we had an opportunity to talk with her, and on the way to work every day, she had to walk through floodwaters, which were filled with sewage because it was a combined sewer situation. And so she knew every block that flooded when it rained. And that's not something, and an important decision maker capacity. But as we're working to establish a stormwater utility and help support, it started from those conversations. Does it make sense? And what would be the added advantage? So that's really, really important. And understanding the time when we have meetings and we have to make adjustments to accommodate the needs of families in the communities that we know are disproportionately negatively impacted. I think that's really critical.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. And I know you're all thinking that Lester is doing a great job moderating this panel. And I appreciate your kind thoughts, but it is very difficult moderating a panel by Zoom. I got a message from our studio that the Honorable Linda Greenstein, Senator Greenstein, has rejoined us. And so we're going to cut back to her. Senator Greenstein, for your conclusion of your opening remarks. You have to unmute yourself, Senator. Senator, you have to unmute yourself.
I do not know what happened. It was a technical error.
No problem.
Well, I think I might have been in the area of lead. I was talking about lead. So it's estimated that at least 20% of lead exposure toward humans comes from drinking water, with formula-fed infants possibly receiving 40 to 60% of lead exposure from the same source. In recent years, several New Jersey water systems, particularly those in urban areas, have reported high lead action levels in their drinking water. No one should have to think twice whether it's safe to grab a glass of water. S3398 will be a great aid in eliminating the risk of further exposures. I want to bring to your attention a couple of other important bills. One is S647, which is currently on the governor's desk. It would revise the cybersecurity, asset management, and reporting requirements for water purveyors under the Water Quality Management Act. Most importantly, it would require these purveyors to submit a cybersecurity plan that meets one of three industry-recognized frameworks: identify a point of contact for cybersecurity practices, and require any water purveyor that experiences a cybersecurity incident compromising information or infrastructure to report it to the New Jersey Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell. Unfortunately, municipal utilities have been the target of cyber attacks, such as the municipal water utility in Florida, which was hacked, where they came very close to having a catastrophe down there. In our own state last fall, the Jersey City Municipal Utilities Authority suffered a cyber attack that blocked access to critical information. This incident threatened the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Jersey City. Realizing, though, that cybersecurity is not just an issue facing water utilities, I've introduced a bill package that will aim to better prepare the state and the private sector. And I plan to hold a cybersecurity hearing in the next few months in my Law and Public Safety Committee, the one that I chair, to hear from experts on this field about how we can strengthen our state's defenses in this area. Another bill is S4018. This is a new bill that I introduced last month that would establish the Household Water Assistance Program and appropriate $75 million to the program. The purpose would be to provide affordability assistance for water, sewer, and stormwater utility services to eligible households throughout New Jersey. Water and sewer rates in the last 10 years or a little before that increased more than twice as fast as the Consumer Price Index. Research sponsored by Jersey Water Works shows that the cost of necessary amounts of water and sewer service already exceeds 4% of household income for many low-income residents. When individuals and families can't pay water or sewer bills, there are significant consequences to their financial and physical health. This bill is critical for households to assess this basic necessity and will help lower utility costs for New Jersey households that need it most. Assistance is available for other utility payments through programs like LIHEAP, the PAGE program, New Jersey Shares, and this would be yet another source. Water is Earth's most important resource. It's everyone's responsibility to take care of it, and we're working on that. Hopefully we'll all be, I think we're doing much better than we were 10 years ago, and we're really on the path to doing a great job with solving these problems, especially with our federal help. Thank you very much for having me and for letting me finish it up. Thank you.
Note that you exercise what's called senatorial courtesy, right?
I did.
If I may, before we go to questions from our audience, our studio audience, Senator, let me follow up with one question for you. You mentioned a number of pieces of legislation that you sponsored and helped move enact into law. What was your favorite? I'm joking. You don't have to answer that one.
Well,
but the real question I have for you, and it's very, the timing couldn't be, more opportune. I just participated in a CLE this morning with the New Jersey judiciary on bias in our legal system and for practitioners. And we see across our state and our nation, racial, religious, ethnic, et cetera, bias. How can New Jersey take advantage of this, quote, water, unquote, water moment for infrastructure funding in a manner that is rooted and takes into account social justice and equity in our communities?
Water infrastructure is not just an environmental issue. It's a health issue, a racial issue, an economic issue. In many communities across the US, water is becoming increasingly unaffordable. Rising utility costs force families to choose between it and other essentials like food, housing, and electricity. The problem with water access doesn't just stop at water affordability. Unclean water can cause severe and costly health issues. Studies have found that throughout the country, low-income communities disproportionately bear the brunt of this crisis. Many of us here know that in the fall of 2020, the governor signed a sweeping environmental justice bill, making New Jersey the first state in the nation to require mandatory permit denials if an environmental justice analysis determines that a new facility will have a disproportionately negative impact on overburdened communities. It requires that New Jersey DEP evaluate environmental and public health impacts of certain facilities on overburdened communities when reviewing permit applications. While the bill doesn't specifically include water systems, there's room to take this approach when it concerns water infrastructures in Black and Brown communities. And by funding water infrastructure, we're funding essentially to close economic and health disparities. So I would say that there really is a direct link in terms of some of the big issues that we have now with bias. And we can definitely work all that into our water system and problems there.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm going to throw a lifeline out to Kim Irby to help me facilitate questions from the chat. I will admit that that's a bit above my pay grade, but I do see one question here from Allison Rowling. The question is, will money be made available to assist with the removal of lead line pipes on the homeowner side if the municipality does not have a lead problem, such as we've seen across our state? So if individual homeowners have lead, are there funding sources presently or thoughts about how to create resources for those needy homeowners? And that's to the whole panel, I guess.
Well, I would just say one thing. Is the person asking if the town doesn't have a lead problem, but one particular homeowner does? Is that
appears to be how the question is phrased, yes.
Right. I am not 100% sure if this new bill or set of bills would directly help in that type situation, but I have a feeling that it might. that's something that we have to take a look at.
Okay, thank you, Senator. And I also see a bravo here. As a public official, I think there was a saying once that elected officials often are publicly shamed and privately praised. And so we have a public praise for you from Pat Lindsay Harvey. It says, bravo, Senator Greenstein, on Bill S4018. So bravo to you.
Thank you. We'll take any bravo we get.
We have a comment here from Mr. Adim from the city of Newark. It says, no one likes to talk about the real cost of water. It's a hidden conversation like pipes underground until something happens. Mr. Adim, would you be open to maybe sharing and expounding upon that thought a bit? Maybe highlighting some of your experiences in the great city of Newark?
Thank you, Mayor Teller. I just wanted to say it's a hidden cost. You dealt with it up in East Orange, fixing the infrastructure. We never really had no one wants to raise rates. We don't really invest in water and wastewater infrastructure like we supposed to. The American Society of Civil Engineers give the United States, not just New Jersey, but the United States like a D or C. It tells you that our most valuable resource when we wake up every morning, all of us want some water. We use the bathroom, we want to flush the toilet, right? But no one, when you say rate increases or we got to pay for this stuff, everybody said we can't do it. It was hard for you up in East Orange, but I just want to, it's great that Newark came together with the county and the state to remove lead service lines, but the real cost of water, that conversation is needed, right? To really engage the residents that water, to treat water and to keep, remove toxins from water. It needs to be a real conversation about water and wastewater infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Adim. I really appreciate your kind words and your insight on that issue. I see a question here, and I'll maybe gear it to Senator Greenstein and Christine and/or Ed. The question is from Cecile Kent. Does our state have a master plan on what lead infrastructure needs replacement and/or a plan to do so statewide versus just when the alarm goes up in a particular community?
So under the new bill that was just recently signed, one of the responsibilities of the water utility is to identify where all the lead service lines are and replace them over a 10-year period. So right now, I can attest there's very few utilities that know where all their lead service lines are. And in that scenario, anything that is unknown is considered lead until determined otherwise. So I wouldn't call it necessarily a master plan, but the plan is that every individual utility is responsible to identify and remediate lead service lines over the next 10 years. This is a pioneer program that sets the bar very high for other states and, led the charge by the city of Newark, showing that this can be done collaboratively, bring jobs, good jobs, and bring more resources to the community and better connect the customer with our utilities.
Thank you, Christine. Ed, before I move on to a question for Jose, is there anything you want to add on that topic?
Well, I didn't mention this, but I'm on my school board in town, and I will just mention, schools are required to map out their entire, test every point that someone could drink from. That includes, I was a high school chemistry teacher. Sometimes there's water fountains in the sinks. We had to test all of that and map out our pipes and figure out where the source of the lead is. But it's quite extensive for our little ones. And as we know, lead is bad for all of us, but really bad for those who are growing and developing. So know that that's happening across the state. The question, I know there was one in the chat too, where does the money come from? Money doesn't grow on trees. We tried to highlight some places where funding is available, including the recovery funds, maybe hopefully this infrastructure package. And it's going to be on all of us to leverage our combined knowledge and relationships to help communities access those funds and really make it a priority. And someone else mentioned in the chat, what can we do to help pass this infrastructure bill? So I'm just going to put a link to a petition you can sign. But if you're interested in getting more involved with a yard sign or writing a letter to the editor, op-ed, things like that, just contact me. I'll put my email as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Senator, you have something you want to add? Yes.
I just wanted to add that when we did this infrastructure committee a couple of years ago, that was one of the biggest things that we noted. There just wasn't any kind of a master plan when it came to the pipes under the ground, whether it was lead service lines or any other pipes. A lot of that just didn't exist, and it's very expensive and very extensive. And, you know, the hope is that it will be done, you know, when it needs to be done, which is now. It's very.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for those comments. Jose, we have a question that is geared towards you. What has been some of the most challenging obstacles that you and or your organization has encountered in your water advocacy work?
Just to briefly answer that, I would like to point out that there has been lack of communication when our meeting has been scheduled. So that's one. We find out what is going to be done after someone has already decided what's going to be done. So sometimes we vouch for certain projects that is backed by science, and the engineers agree on it, but for some reason, whoever decides what green infrastructure, for example, will be included in the project is not feasible, and we never get answers as to why that reasoning is there. So that's another one. And lastly, I'd just like to point out that not everyone is included in the discussion. Sometimes it's just city employees that are making the decisions, or other people that are not associated with the locality that is affected by everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose. So just looking at the chat again, and we've got a few minutes, I really want to commend the staff from Jersey Waterworks again for really running a tight ship with this. It's not easy by Zoom. So I'm looking at Paula and Lauren in particular. Thank you, ladies, for your work. A couple of comments here, and I think I just lost them. But someone said, they commented that this is a great members meeting with folks speaking with each other, not at one another. So again, I really want to thank Jersey Waterworks, but also all the participants for having this phenomenal dialogue. There are some other comments here that are worth noting as two attendees reference. That it's worth noting that public water is much cheaper than bottled water, and it's worth the investment. The public doesn't hear that value statement enough. And also a statement that the public water industry is regulated much more stringently than the bottled water industry. I see Governor Florio with his hand up. Governor, you have a question or comment? You have to unmute yourself, sir. Governor, you need to unmute yourself. Can we unmute Governor Florio? Can we do it remotely? Lauren or Paula, can we remotely unmute him? He's in our Cherry Hill office, so I know that it's not at his fingertips to do it.
You might just have to click on his screen. He should be allowed to.
Did we lose him? He moved.
There he is.
Yeah.
You have to unmute.
Governor, do you have a mouse and a keyboard there to when in doubt, call Lou Capelli. He'll come save the day. All right, so while the governor gets that, one other, we have a couple of minutes left. There's a comment here: great appreciation for Newark's success on lead service lines, outstanding effort. So we want to really thank that commenter for that. We've got 1 second here. And Kim Irby, if you want to help me out, you're more than welcome. Governor Florio, we have him. Thank you.
I have wonderful staff who keeps me relevant. Let me just say that this whole adventure here today is really very important. It's probably the most important thing that we can do, which is outreach to get people engaged and involved in this whole issue. I was just thinking the other day, talking with someone who said that water is the new oil. The oil in the last century was the major lubricant to keep things going. We had real financial problems with our economy when the oil was not available. We had international problems when oil was not available. And now we have the same thing in this century with water.
water is not available, not there, don't have the quality, quantity, that's not going to be something that's good. So we have to reach out, get people engaged, involved in the process, and that'll be the way that we'll get some of these things done. But talking and figuring out new ways of communicating with people like this is a secret to progress in the future. So I commend everybody for the work they've done.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for those very insightful words that are a great closeout for this panel. I'm going to turn it over now to Nicole Miller, who I believe is going to take us to our next slide.
Yes. Am I muted? No. Okay. So we want to remember the work of our committees on all of these, on all of this process. We have our committee updates that are going to be coming up shortly. We have the Lead and Drinking Water Task Force. We have the Data Advisory Committee, Education and Outreach, our Green Infrastructure Committee, Combined Sewer Overflow, Asset Management and Finance. We have a whole host of committees and initiatives for everyone to be able to get involved in. And you've heard this dynamic conversation that just happened with our panelists, as well as the conversation that happened inside the chat. Please be paying attention to the chat and be participating in that. We need all of Jersey Waterworks coming together. That's why we're here. And I want you to consider the conversation that we've just had all together. This dynamic conversation is a result of the fact that we have an unprecedented opportunity to be able to work together with each other to improve New Jersey's water infrastructure, both the drinking water and the wastewater infrastructure. But we want to make sure that we do that in a respectful way, in an equitable way, and in a comprehensive way that builds on our successes and doesn't do things in an old way, right? We don't want to fix our problems using old, outdated technology or modes and methods of thinking. And so we want to work together as Jersey Waterworks. So we have our breakout groups coming up next. And in those breakout groups, you'll have an opportunity to really focus on each one of the issues that we've been discussing, to really focus on, are we discussing equity? How are we going to pay for things? How are we going to be able to maximize our capacity? How are we going to be able to collaborate effectively? And so those are the areas in which we want to focus on. If we can go to the next slide, it has, yes. Are we doing committee updates? Oh.
Well, while you're doing that, if I may just interject, and I apologize, but I'd be remiss if I didn't, again, especially thank our panelists, Ed Potasnak, Christine Ballard, Jose Amarante, and again, Senator Linda Greenstein. Thank you all for your phenomenal contributions and the work you do every day. Nicole, my apology, but I wanted to make sure we got that in. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for naming them all. Thank you very much to our panelists and to Governor Florino coming in to share his insights as well. We have some updates. The Lead Task Force has been advancing statewide education, a campaign on the lead exposure issue, as well as preparing a comprehensive consensus plan on how to address lead in drinking water in licensed and family-run childcare facilities in New Jersey. So that's some of the work that has been happening recently in our Lead Task Force. And on the Data Advisory Committee, they recently launched Jersey Water Check back in March. If you have not had a chance to check it out, please do so. We have an online data dashboard. It communicates about water and connects residents and utilities. I think Director Adine mentioned that idea of it being out of sight, out of mind. But we want to bring these ideas up into the public notice, having those conversations so that they're not happening in isolated sort of pockets, but they're happening in the wider community. And people understand that this is integral infrastructure and it needs to be dealt with as well as dealt with on a financial basis. So thank you to our committees, Jersey Water Check, please check it out. It's a collaborative measurement tool. We invite you to join one of the committees that we have and to learn how we can make Jersey Water Check better and help it to serve New Jersey going forward. So as I mentioned, our next section is the breakout section. where we will be having these 4 dynamic sessions. They are going to be dynamic because we will be working together to make them dynamic. You'll be able to choose which session you want. We have paying for water infrastructure with the Dan Kennedy and Dan Van As. We also have community-driven infrastructure decision-making with Naima and Mishka, 2 dynamic women who are working in water and in community engagement, just doing incredible work. We have the water map and the power of data discussing our water risk and equity map that was just launched, that was just displayed earlier in the meeting. We have Amy, Pablo, Glenn, and Winifred who are going to be working, leading the discussion on that. And then the combined sewer overflow and stormwater solutions, we have Director Adeem and Andy Cricken, my co-chair, who are going to be leading those conversations. So you have in the bottom breakout rooms, we have a slide that has some information there. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you can see breakout rooms has now appeared. It wasn't there before. And you can choose which of the rooms you want to choose. It should have popped up on your screen and you can choose which of the rooms that you want. So I believe the first, can we go back to the last slide? The first one was paying for water infrastructure. The second was community-driven infrastructure decision-making. The third, water map and the power of data. And the fourth breakout room is combined sewer overflow and stormwater solutions. So let's go ahead and move into our breakout rooms.
Well, thanks everybody. We're back, and hope that you all enjoyed the breakout sessions. I'm just so happy and pleased to see all that Jersey Waterworks is doing and the energy of the volunteers and of course the backbone staff. And again, a thanks to the Dodge Foundation for funding this and bringing us all together and giving us this platform to make this happen. So some takeaways and notes that are up on the screen here. That public participation is important, and that has been a foundation of Jersey Waterworks. This idea of prioritizing education to the community so that they can get more engaged and know what they're doing. Also, making sure that federal funding comes to New Jersey, and then when it does, that funding goes to utilities and environmental justice communities especially, so that they can get their fair share of the funding. That was something that we talked about quite a bit in the CSO committee. Also that the water risk and equity map and Jersey Water Check are useful data sources. I really, as a former water utility manager, I believe that transparency is incredibly important. If people know what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, they're more likely to support you. And also transparency is a two-way street. You can learn from the community. The community knows more about what they need than any utility manager. The utility may know the system better. Together, they can find the right solution for the community that makes the most sense. So thanks everyone for making the time for this. And also I want to thank all of you for attending this, this 6th annual meeting, a virtual meeting, difficult and challenging, but I'm glad that we've all come through for the most part this pandemic. There's more to do, of course, the pandemic, but at least I'm grateful to New Jersey Future for putting this virtual workshop together and for all of you making the time to join it. I really and participate today. And most importantly, thank you for your work throughout the year and years on these major water equity initiatives that you've heard about today. There's a lot has been done. We can look back from 2015 when this initiative was started and see that we really have come a long way, and this has been a very impactful initiative, but there is more to do. And as Nicole said at the beginning, the moment is really now more than ever, with new infrastructure coming in from the American Rescue Plan, hopefully from the Federal Infrastructure Fund. There is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really fix things, to make sure that children don't have to walk through puddles of sewage to get to their bus stops or worry about lead in drinking water, and make sure that everyone has these opportunities at an affordable rate. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the upcoming year. Thanks again for participating. And if you aren't a member of Jersey Waterworks, if ever there was a time to join and be part of this initiative, this is the time. So thanks once again. Best wishes to all. And I'll turn it over to my friend and colleague, Nicole.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We've had a really great meeting. It's been very dynamic, and we're able to be responsive to the needs of the community just because we have such a wide-ranging group of committed individuals in this collaborative. And so I second Andy's request for you to join us, join our committees, join the collaborative, really get in and let's do the work. If you were in one of those breakout sessions, then you are in just the tip of the iceberg of conversation that's happening within the Jersey Waterworks sphere. And so please do join one of our committees, really stay involved and get involved. Check out our new website, which was launched and mentioned earlier today. Please do check it out. And please share with each other. So we've had a really dynamic chat conversation. And so hopefully you've been using Basecamp, you've connected with people and networked even through this virtual platform. And we want you to stay involved and stay connected with each other. And we want to hear from your thoughts. So right now we're closing down the meeting, but we have a post-meeting survey that we'll be sending out. So please do tell us your thoughts. Tell us what you liked, what you wanted to see more of, and we want to hear from you. So if you look in the chat there, you will see a link. I believe Lauren put the link into the chat for our post membership meeting survey. And I do want you to be on the lookout. We still have our membership meeting coming up in our conference coming up in December. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, please do join one of our committees, join the membership and stay involved. Read your Basecamp emails. And please, if you respond to a Basecamp email, it goes to everyone. Can we just say that while we have 80 people on the line? So please respond directly to the person that you want. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much to the Backbone staff. Can I just get like a round of applause to our Backbone staff? Y'all are wonderful. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you for joining us.